Welcome to this episode of Global Today on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. Really appreciate you joining us, and let's start the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Global Review Podcast number 2, everyone. And this one, I'm going to be honest, it took a lot more work to make than the other one, so we hope you enjoy it, and you better get a good grade on this test. All right, Buddhism is obviously what's about cultural diffusion in the Buddhist world. Very important. So, first of all, we may just start with what is cultural diffusion. And before we find that out, I want to tell you a quick, fun little backstory about this podcast. This podcast, just like the first episode and some of the episodes later in our first series, came together as a project made by me to help my friends in school review for the test. What I would do is compile some review materials, put together something that we would do for a history test at a later point, and then put it all together in the podcast for friends to listen to. And we may get some new versions of those podcasts, never before aired, coming out soon. So, that could be very fun later on in the series. So that's something to look forward to. Now, what's cultural diffusion, you ask? Here's the answer. It's a spreading of tradition and ideas and culture from one society to another. For example, this is kind of a modern version or example, but a McDonald's in Tokyo would be an example of an American culture spreading to a Japanese capital city. So, it all starts with the Silk Road. And the Silk Road connected at China, India, and the Mediterranean Sea. Those points were where it really spread around and had some pretty major influence on the really most of the modern the world at that time, and it was quite a big deal to have that happen. And people traveled on the Silk Road. They started off with wheeled vehicles that disappeared at different times. They kind of shifted back and forth, but I don't know if you knew this, but the way to get around the Silk Road was camel caravan. And that was how that was how people thought it was most effective to get from place to place. Some of the goods traded, these are just 3, but there are many more. There was glass, there was silk, there was music, and you can imagine Silk Road. Silk probably has to be traded, and different kinds of culture, different kinds of music was traded as well as goods. There was also some pretty busy Indian Ocean trading going on, so that was important. And we are. That's kind of the little brother of the Silk Road, I guess. So what places did the Indian Ocean trade? They traded at Egyptian and Indian ports. That's where they were most busy. It kind of went from Egyptian and Arabic ports to Indian ports, as in the country India. And really, monsoons helped these traders a lot because they helped transport Arabic and Indian traders to home and back. For example, if you're an Arabic trader, you'd set off the coast of Egypt. Then a monsoon, which is a huge wind, would come in and blow you all the way to India. You'd stay, you'd do your trading. A few months later, it'd blow you right back. So it's really convenient, really perfect. Some of the stuff traded there was gold, cotton, spices, and rice. That was also pretty helpful. Now we start with the lesson first. The first lesson, 4.01 and homework 4.02, if you're, and maybe different for people in other global classes. It all started with the Mauryan Empire, and the Mauryan Empire ruled parts of India from 321 BCE until 185 BCE. In 269 BCE, Ashoka Maurya, it's Ashoka for short, really, or Asoka, inherited the throne of the Mauryan Empire in India. So here are some of the major laws he had, and they were called Ashoka's edicts. There were new laws inscribed on rocks and stone pillars that were put up in public places throughout the empire, so everyone knows, just so we're clear, these are the rules. You can't break them because they're in stone. It looks really bad if you do break them. There's no sacrifice of animals for religious rituals will be permitted in the capital. Slaughter, mutilation of specific animals and birds by anyone is forbidden. The king will no longer go on royal hunts. The king renounces victory by wars of conquest. The beloved gods consider the victory, or Dhamma, righteousness, to be the foremost victory. So pretty much that last one, it may sound a little bit confusing when I read it, but it basically means is you can't do a war of conquest. You can't take other people. You can't harm other people. Because the big thing with Ahsoka is he was kicking butt all around India. He was conquering a bunch of people, and he was like, I'm the best. And then he conquered one group, and he was just about to finish conquering everything, and he felt really bad. So he was like, I'm going to convert to Buddhism. I'm going to help people. I'm going to be empathetic. And those edicts really added a level of respect and taught everyone to be empathetic towards each other, and that was a really, really big deal. And the Gupta Empire, the key thing to know about that is it was a golden age, and golden ages are periods of great peace, so no fighting, prosperity, everyone's doing okay, they're thriving in their lives, having a good life, pretty much, and cultural and scientific achievement. That was another big deal. So, for example, the Tang and Song dynasty in the Han Empire, that was a long time ago, as well as the Gupta Empire, are all examples of golden ages when there was extended periods of peace, prosperity, and cultural and scientific achievement. Yeah, so very cool stuff. So let's now time to take a look at Buddhism. And as we know, the founder was Siddhartha Gautama, who is a former Hindu prince. We learned about it back a long time ago. And the goal was kind of seek your own salvation with diligence and be a lamp on yourself, help yourself, make yourself better, and just spread the goodwill and spread the positivity. It's a very positive, kind, and nice religion. But then it kind of split off into two branches. One was Theravada Buddhism, and that was the original form of Buddha, the traditional way, the purists of Buddhism were Theravada, and Mahayana, or majority Buddhism, the mainstream and the majority, they did something a little bit different. Because how do you reach if you're a normal Buddhist, you reach your goal through the ways of the Eightfold Path, Four Noble Truths, Finding a Way Out of Suffering, etc. That should all probably ring some distant bells in your head, even if you're not that good at global. Maybe you'll remember it. It's all about finding a way out of suffering, doing better for yourself, etc. And so here is how each religion viewed the Buddha. They viewed Theravada Buddhism, viewed him as a teacher, someone to help you improve your life, get yourself out of enlightenment, reach nirvana, and achieve really just get yourself out of suffering. And maybe that involved being a monk or whatnot, but it was just all about just finding a way out of suffering and achieving enlightenment. So Mahayana Buddhism had a little bit more of an interesting scenario. They view the Buddha as a god, and he was like, he's the best, he's holy, even though Theravada Buddhism viewed him as just a normal dude. He was viewed as a god by some people in Mahayana Buddhism, and the goal in Mahayana Buddhism was all about being a bodhisattva, or a bodhisattva. And that's probably awful pronunciation, I do apologize, but being a bodhisattva is all about achieving enlightenment, but not and before you go fully enlightened, before you're like sitting in the sun and being like, you gotta go back and you gotta help others come up behind you and achieve that enlightenment too. So you gotta help your buddies get there as well. And the whole goal is to receive help from the Bodhisattva, and those are your helpers along the way. And Theravada, though, I mean, you didn't get any help. It was you get there or you don't get there. Come on, you get what you get, and you don't get upset. And it's kind of Theravada Buddhism's main goal there, and they reached the goal through attainment of enlightenment, and that was a big deal. That was the big situation there, and that was a big situation there. They wanted to attain enlightenment, receive help from the Bodhisattva, and really anyone and everyone could reach the goal in both parts of Buddhism. But the main goal of what one should strive to be in Theravada Buddhism was an arhat, whereas you wanted to be a bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism to help others. When an arhat is in Theravada Buddhism, you're just very calm, you're very enlightened. And Mahayana Buddhism was mainly prevalent in China, which is interesting. So in the Tang and Song dynasties, these were very popular, very powerful dynasties, very good dynasties. They were a golden age, and as we talked about golden ages where there's peace, prosperity, and cultural and scientific achievements. But the thing is, the cool thing that the Tang and Song dynasties did was, they had tributes that could be thought of taxes or gifts. So they made other people, Vietnam, Tibet, and Korea were tributary states of China, and they paid tributes to the Chinese, or taxes, or some kind of gifts almost for protection there. And so they did a lot of cool stuff. The Chinese did, especially under the Tang and Song dynasties, and all started out with agriculture. So the agriculture really and trade helped advance the Tang and Song dynasty's successfulness, because they had really composing to help trade ships go in the right direction and made trade safer and more efficient. So that's what was really really helpful. Big thing they did was a magnetic compass that helped things a lot. It made China a great sea power. Yeah, that was a really big deal. And the invention of the floating compass allowed sailors to calculate true north and use that information to navigate. So they could really navigate around the seas. That helped them with accuracy during trading, and they were able to get to places faster without, oops, I went the wrong way, or I lost my course, or something along those lines. So, also, art's obviously very important. And the artistic and cultural achievements of the Tang and Song dynasties contributed to their success as empires, because they promoted moral order in society, and they glorified the state, identified beauty and balance of nature, and that was appealing to the people, and it strengthened the government's influence quite tremendously on that front. So there was also some pretty solid Tang poetry that was considered very, very popular there. And that was one of the Tang poetry was very well known, very well renowned. They also drew really amazing scenes around them. Some about their nature and mountains and other situations like that was very important there. So the Song dynasty military forces as early as 904 AD used gunpowder devices against their primary enemy, the Mongols. So they were able to initiate gunpowder for the very first time. That allowed them, as you can imagine, to be incredibly effective during war. And small packages of gunpowder wrapped in paper or bamboo were attached to arrows, which marked the first use of gunpowder in war. So these would be lit with a fuse of some kind, so the arrow would become really a flaming arrow. And that's got to hurt your army if you got flaming arrows coming in there right at you. So religion and the melding of religion, and in the Tang and Song dynasty, was all about the diffusion of notice I said made a connection, cultural diffusion there. Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism all were the three teachings of the Tang and Song dynasties, which was pretty important there on that front. So, there are three powers, and there are three teachings that really influenced this religion. So they contribute to the success of the empire by creating peace, allowing for happiness of all individuals, and have a detailed and sensible philosophy for who should lead their bureaucracy. So, Confucianism, they also use Confucianism. This is an interesting thing. They use Confucianism to help for government positions, similar to other Chinese dynasties have in the past, and that made the smartest people get in the government, which is very key. So, also in the next subject that we have for you today is government and education. So what they did with what the Tang and Song Golden Age did with government education was they really described how they printed a wood block and dated it back all the way to 1249, and it was an illustrated block that described Chinese herbal medicine. Printing not only enabled the spread of cultural wisdom, but also allowed Chinese officials to distribute important documents. So, I mean, I guess you could say the invention of Chinese printing and paper could fall under technology or something along those lines, but also falls under government, because government needs to get stuff around to you, and they can't if you can't put it on a book or you can't understand language. That'll change under the Tang and Song dynasties. So, yeah. And finally, social structure of the Tang and Song dynasties contributed to their success because, as an empire, it created order. and made clear where your respect should be directed, and made